Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to find your front door wide open. No sign of forced entry, no creaks in the silence, nothing but an unsettling invitation into the unknown. I didn't even have time to convince myself it was a dream before my phone buzzed with a notification, the screen illuminating my face in the dark. I glanced at the security app and saw something that shattered every semblance of normalcy. There I was, captured on camera, leaving the house at 2:47 a.m. with a vacant, almost otherworldly expression. I sat frozen, heart pounding like a runaway train, as I replayed the footage over and over, trying desperately to understand how I could have done something so inexplicable. I spent the next few minutes in a haze, mind reeling from the bizarre sight of my own image acting out a scene that wasn't mine, at least not the one I remembered. Every instinct told me something was horribly wrong. I rose from my bed, each step toward the living room echoing in the silent corridors of my home. The door still lay open, a silent witness to whatever force had compelled me to leave. With trembling hands, I reached for the phone again, scrolling through a series of cryptic messages left by an unknown number on my wife's phone. Messages that hinted at secrets too heavy to carry in the daylight. It wasn't just the open door or the unsettling footage. It was the feeling of being caught in a web of lies and hidden truths that I never knew existed. I recalled that evening vividly. My wife, Emma, had whispered something about an unavoidable truth earlier that night, a statement so offhand that I dismissed it as the ramblings of a tired mind. But now, as I pieced together the fragments of evidence, the inexplicable messages, the eerie silence of the empty hallway, and the haunting image of myself, I realized that everything I thought I knew about my life was crumbling before my eyes. I began to search for answers, starting with the messages on her phone. They were short, cryptic texts, some dating back months. "It can't be hidden forever," one read. Another said, "Soon, he will know." My mind raced as I tried to connect the dots between these vague threats and the inexplicable footage. Was my wife involved in something sinister? Had she been keeping secrets not just from me, but from everyone? The idea churned in my stomach like a dark storm, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the precipice of a revelation that would change everything. Determined to find some answers, I dug deeper into our past. I rummaged through old emails, texts, and even diaries that I'd kept over the years, a habit I had developed in hopes of understanding my own thoughts. In one of these old journals, I stumbled upon an entry from years ago, written in a shaky hand. Sometimes, the past comes back to haunt us in ways we never expect. The truth is buried deep, hidden behind layers of lies and forgotten memories. I remember that entry vividly, though I'd long since dismissed it as the ramblings of a younger, more paranoid version of myself. Now, those words resonated with a chilling clarity. I began recalling snippets of conversations from years past, snatches of dialogue with old friends, casual remarks at family gatherings, and even murmurs overheard in the dead of night. There was a pattern, an undercurrent of secrecy that I had never fully understood. One friend in particular, Mark, had once mentioned that our families shared a dark history, a legacy of secrets involving money, betrayal, and a mysterious organization that operated from the shadows. At the time, I had laughed it off as conspiracy theory fodder, but now, every strange occurrence in my life seemed to point back to that very conversation. The deeper I delved, the more my reality began to splinter. Late one night, unable to sleep, I drove to an old abandoned building on the edge of town, a place that my father had once mentioned in hushed tones. The structure, dilapidated and cloaked in a shroud of urban legends, had long been rumored to have served as a meeting point for a secret society. I parked my car in a shadowed lot and crept toward the entrance, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The building was dark and foreboding, with long corridors that seemed to stretch into oblivion. As I ventured further inside, a sense of déjà vu washed over me, as though I were retracing steps from a forgotten dream. Inside, I found evidence of recent activity, a discarded coffee cup here, a fresh set of footprints in the dust. It was as if someone had been there not long ago, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. In a small room at the end of the corridor, I discovered a file cabinet filled with documents, old photos, bank statements, and a series of letters written in a script I didn't recognize. One letter, in particular, caught my eye. It was addressed to me, though I had no recollection of ever receiving anything like it. The letter spoke of a secret lineage, of a legacy that tied my family to a clandestine network involved in both high-stakes financial crimes and ancient mystical rituals. My heart pounded as I read each word, feeling as though I were being drawn into a vortex of revelations that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. That night, as I sat in my car outside the abandoned building, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had unearthed something that was never meant to be discovered. The letter had hinted at a truth so profound that it would unravel the very fabric of my identity. Questions swirled in my mind. Was my entire life orchestrated by unseen hands? Had my every decision been manipulated by forces I couldn't even begin to comprehend? And where did Emma fit into all of this? Was she merely a victim of circumstance, or was she an active participant in this elaborate charade? Back at home, I confronted Emma. I needed answers. I asked her about the messages, the secrets, and the mysterious past that now loomed over us like a dark cloud. But her reaction was not one of shock or remorse. It was an eerie calm, as though she had been expecting my questions all along. "There are things you don't understand," she said softly, her eyes avoiding mine. "Some truths are better left buried." Her words only deepened my confusion and dread. I pressed her for details, but every time I did, she grew more distant, more detached, as if she were receding into a fog of her own making. Over the following days, I scoured every corner of our lives for clues. I searched through hidden drawers, old storage boxes, even the digital remnants of our past in emails and cloud storage. I found nothing concrete, only whispers of a life I never knew existed, hints of clandestine meetings, and strange, inexplicable coincidences that defied logic. Every piece of evidence only led to more questions, and I felt myself spiraling deeper into a labyrinth of secrets and lies. Nights became a blur of restless sleep and frantic investigations, and my days were consumed by a single, burning need to understand what was happening. One evening, while sifting through an old box of mementos from my childhood, childhood, I discovered a faded photograph of my family, taken decades ago. In the background, barely visible, was a group of people in dark suits gathered around a table covered with maps and documents. Among them was a man whose face looked disturbingly familiar. It was my father. The photo was annotated with strange symbols and cryptic notes, hinting at a secret organization that operated behind the facade of normalcy. I recalled that my father had always been a man of few words about his past, and whenever I had asked about his early years, he would change the subject. Now, the pieces of the puzzle began to align in a way that I could no longer ignore. The deeper I dug into my family's history, the more I realized that the threads of deception stretched back further than I had ever imagined. I found old letters hidden in the attic, written in a language I couldn't decipher, and documents that mentioned names of people I had never heard before, names that seemed to reappear in the strange messages on Emma's phone. It was as if my entire existence was part of a grand, unfathomable conspiracy, a tapestry woven with threads of betrayal, mysticism, and crime. Every revelation was like peeling back a layer of an onion, and with each layer came a new set of mysteries that threatened to overwhelm me. In the midst of this relentless quest for truth, I began receiving phone calls from an unknown number. At first, I hesitated to answer, fearing yet another piece of this maddening puzzle, but curiosity eventually overcame my apprehension. The voice on the other end was low and gravelly, speaking in riddles that hinted at a dangerous game being played far beyond my comprehension. "You're not who you think you are," the caller murmured. "The answers you seek are hidden in the shadows of your past. Trust no one." I couldn't tell if it was a threat or a plea for help, but the words sent a shiver down my spine. Each call only deepened the mystery, leaving me to wonder if I was being manipulated by someone, or something, that knew far more about me than I could ever imagine. As the days turned into nights, my sense of reality began to blur. I started experiencing strange dreams, vivid, almost tangible visions of a life I couldn't remember living. In these dreams, I saw glimpses of a younger version of myself, entangled in bizarre rituals and secret meetings held in dimly lit basements. I saw figures cloaked in darkness, their faces obscured by shadows, whispering incantations that sent chills through my soul. The dreams were so vivid that I'd wake up drenched in sweat, the lines between memory and nightmare indistinguishable. I began to question everything. Was I really the person I believed myself to be? Or was I merely a pawn in a much larger, more sinister game? My investigation took an even darker turn when I discovered a hidden room in our basement, a space I'd never noticed before, concealed behind a false wall. The room was filled with old photographs, relics, and documents that chronicled decades of covert operations, financial transactions, and mysterious rituals. There were records of meetings, detailed accounts of secret deals, and even a ledger with names and amounts that hinted at illegal transactions. Among the clutter, I found a diary belonging to someone named Richard, a name I recognized from the old family photos. The diary recounted events that spanned generations, detailing a secret society that used money, power, and mysticism to control lives from behind the scenes. As I read, my mind reeled with the realization that my own existence was intertwined with this shadowy network. In a desperate bid for answers, I reached out to Mark, the old friend who had once hinted at the hidden past of our families. I found him living in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, his once bright eyes now clouded with the weight of countless secrets. Over a few late-night cups of bitter coffee, Mark reluctantly revealed that he had been investigating similar mysteries for years. He spoke of clandestine meetings, of secret societies that operated in the margins of society, and of betrayals so deep that even the closest of bonds were severed without warning. According to him, our families had been entangled in a complex web of deceit, a legacy that had been carefully hidden away, only to resurface when the time was right. He warned me that the deeper I dug, the more dangerous it would become, but his tone carried an undeniable urgency that left no room for second thoughts. Armed with this new perspective, I began to retrace the steps of my own past, searching for clues in the places I'd long forgotten. I visited the old neighborhood where I grew up, a place that now felt like a ghost town, haunted by memories of a bygone era. The streets were eerily quiet, and the familiar faces of neighbors had faded into distant recollections. In one abandoned storefront, I found a faded poster advertising a secret meeting, a meeting that my father had attended decades ago. The poster was marked with symbols that matched those in the diary from the hidden room in our basement. It was as if my entire life was a series of echoes, each one reverberating with the weight of secrets too immense to be contained. Every new discovery only deepened the mystery and heightened my sense of isolation. I began to feel as though I were walking on a tightrope stretched over an abyss of unknown terrors, with every step risking a plunge into darkness from which there might be no escape. The more I learned, the more I realized that nothing in my life was as it seemed. My wife's distant behavior, cryptic messages, the inexplicable footage of my own actions, all of it pointed to a grand design that defied conventional logic. One fateful night, as a torrential rain battered my windows and the wind howled like a living creature, I received a final message that would upend everything. The unknown number sent a single text: "Meet me at the old warehouse on the docks. Tonight, all will be revealed." I hesitated for only a moment before deciding that any risk was better than the agonizing uncertainty that plagued me. I drove through the storm, the rain obscuring the road ahead, until I reached a desolate warehouse by the docks, a relic of an era long past, now shrouded in mystery and decay. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension and the metallic scent of rust. The only light came from a few flickering bulbs hanging precariously from the ceiling. As I made my way through the cavernous space, I saw a lone figure standing near a stack of old shipping containers. The figure turned as I approached, revealing a face that was both familiar and strange, a face that sent a shock of recognition through my veins. It was Emma, but there was something off about her, a cold detachment in her eyes that belied the warmth I had once known. She gestured silently for me to follow her deeper into the maze of corridors behind the main room. Every step I took was filled with dread and anticipation. Emma led me to a small, dimly lit room where where a group of people sat around a large, circular table. Their eyes met mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. In that moment, I realized that I had stumbled into something far greater than a mere personal betrayal. A clandestine meeting of minds involved in an intricate conspiracy that spanned generations. The air was charged with secrets, each person's presence a silent acknowledgement of the darkness that bound us all together. As I listened to their hushed conversation, fragments of words floated through the room. Words like sacrifice, destiny, and the awakening. It became clear that the meeting was not just about financial transactions or petty crimes. It was about a cosmic plan, a force that had shaped our lives long before any of us were born. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the weight of it all threatened to crush me. In that surreal moment, I knew that I was entangled in a web of mysticism and crime that defied explanation. Emma finally spoke, her voice calm and measured, as though reciting a rehearsed line. "You've always been curious, haven't you? It's time you learned the truth." Her words resonated with a mixture of sorrow and inevitability. I demanded answers. How was it that my entire life had been orchestrated by a hidden hand? What was the connection between our families, the secret society, and the cryptic messages? But before anyone could reply, a sudden clamor erupted from the far side of the room. A figure, cloaked in darkness, burst through the door and collapsed onto the floor, blood trickling from a wound on his temple. In that instant, time seemed to slow, and the room filled with an oppressive silence as every eye turned toward the intruder. The stranger's eyes fluttered open, and in a strained whisper he uttered a single, fateful word: redemption. The word reverberated through the room, stirring something deep within me, a flicker of recognition, as if the answer to all these mysteries lay hidden in that one utterance. The figure's presence, however brief, plunged the meeting into chaos. Heated whispers and frantic gestures filled the air as members of the group scrambled to regain control. Emma's calm demeanor faltered for just a moment, revealing the depth of the secrets she had long carried. I stood there, caught between shock and a desperate need to know more. The voice of that dying stranger echoed in my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was all part of a larger plan, one that had been set in motion long before I ever questioned the fabric of my own existence. The storm outside intensified, the sound of thunder mingling with the rapid beat of my heart, and I realized that every answer I sought only led to deeper, more perplexing questions. In that labyrinth of conspiracies and hidden truths, I felt the weight of a destiny I had never chosen, yet one that seemed inexorably tied to my very being. As I left the warehouse that night, the images of that chaotic meeting burned in my memory, and I vowed to uncover the secrets that bound me to a past I had no memory of. My journey had taken me from the familiar confines of my home to the murky depths of forgotten legacies, each step revealing another layer of a reality I could barely comprehend. The open door, the mysterious messages, the inexplicable footage, all were pieces of a puzzle that threatened to dismantle everything I thought I knew about my life. In the weeks that followed, I became obsessed with retracing every step, every clue that could possibly unlock the mystery. I scoured public records, dug into family archives, and even enlisted the help of an old acquaintance skilled in digital forensics. Late at night, as I pored over reams of data and obscure documents, I felt a growing sense of urgency, a need to piece together the shattered remnants of my identity before the shadowy forces behind it could silence me forever. Every discovery was a double-edged sword, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of truth while plunging me further into the abyss of uncertainty. There were moments when I would sit alone in the dark, the silence broken only by the hum of my computer, and feel as though I were teetering on the edge of a revelation that would either free me or destroy me completely. I began to receive more messages from the unknown number, each one more urgent and cryptic than the last. They warned of impending danger, of a reckoning that was fast approaching, a reckoning that seemed to be linked to the mysterious society my father had been entangled with and the secret rituals that haunted my dreams. One such message simply read, "The cycle is about to complete." I spent countless nights wondering what cycle it referred to, each possibility more disturbing than the last. Was it a cycle of betrayal, of revenge, or perhaps a cycle of destiny that had been set in motion long before I was born? The uncertainty gnawed at me, making every moment a delicate dance between hope and despair. My search for the truth had become an all-consuming journey, one that blurred the lines between reality and the inexplicable. As the mystery deepened, I began noticing subtle signs everywhere, the same symbols etched on an old street corner, the recurring motifs in family heirlooms, and even in the way Emma's eyes would dart away whenever a particular topic arose. The symbols, mysterious and arcane, seemed to serve as a constant reminder that my life was part of something much larger, something orchestrated by forces that defied the ordinary. I realized that every encounter, every seemingly random event, was a thread in an intricate tapestry woven by unseen hands. One rainy afternoon, I met an elderly man at a rundown diner on the outskirts of town. His eyes, though tired, sparkled with a wisdom that seemed to pierce through the layers of time. Over a shared cup of coffee, he told me a story of a secret meeting held decades ago, a meeting that had set the stage for everything that was happening now. According to him, the society that had manipulated my life had roots in ancient rituals designed to control fate and bend the course of destiny. His words painted a picture of a world where money, power, and mysticism were interwoven, where every action had consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. I left the diner with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear: the truth was far more complex and far more dangerous than I had ever suspected. Days turned into weeks, and my life became a relentless pursuit of the hidden, the obscure, and the forbidden. Every moment was charged with the electric tension of discovery, and every shadow seemed to whisper secrets of its own. I retraced my steps to places I had long avoided, conversed with reluctant witnesses, and even confronted those who had been part of the clandestine meetings in my family's past. With each conversation, I felt as though I were peeling back yet another layer of a mystery that reached back to the very origins of my existence. Yet no matter how hard I searched, the answers remained just out of reach, as if they were deliberately concealed by a force determined to keep me in perpetual suspense. Now, as I sit here, the evidence sprawled out before me like like a map to a destiny I never asked for, I can only wonder if I'm on the brink of uncovering a truth that will shatter the world I thought I knew. The fragments of my past, the cryptic warnings, and the inexplicable encounters all converge into one overwhelming realization. Everything, every betrayal, every secret, every whisper in the dark, has led me to this moment. And yet, even as the pieces begin to fall into place, I feel the looming presence of a deeper mystery, one that defies explanation and challenges the very nature of reality itself. I know now that I have only scratched the surface of a labyrinthine puzzle, one that spans generations and intertwines the fates of those I love with the machinations of a hidden society. The night I saw myself on the security camera was not an isolated incident, but the spark that ignited a chain reaction of events that have pulled me inexorably toward an unknown future. As I take one more look at the evidence and brace myself for what comes next, I realize that the journey has only just begun. Every step I take now, every risk I run, carries me further into a world where nothing is as it seems, and where the truth is both a blessing and a curse. I stand on the edge of this abyss, caught between the desperate need to know and the overwhelming terror of what I might discover. The open door at home, the inexplicable footage, the cryptic messages, the hidden rooms, the mysterious figures, all these fragments form a mosaic of a life that has been meticulously manipulated by forces beyond my control. And as the storm of revelations rages on, I am left with one final, haunting thought. The cycle is nearing its end, and soon, I will be forced to confront a truth that could unravel everything I've ever known. Even now, as I write these words, the phone buzzes once again with a new message, a message that promises answers, but also hints at an even greater mystery that lies just beyond my grasp. I hesitate, knowing that each revelation carries with it the risk of further plunging me into a reality that is as bewildering as it is dangerous. And so, with trembling fingers and a heart full of both dread and determination, I prepare to take the next step into the unknown, ready to face whatever darkness awaits on the other side. And in that moment of fragile resolve, I realize that I am no longer just a man searching for the truth. I am a part of a story that has been unfolding for generations, a story that is far from over, a story that will continue to unravel until every secret is laid bare. And then, as I close my eyes to brace for what comes next, I understood one undeniable truth. Nothing will ever be the same again, and everything I thought I knew was about to be challenged in ways I couldn't even imagine. And then I realized,